There are many warriors in the galaxy, but some legends are born not from battle, but from saving lives. This is the story of a human doctor, a Deathworlder, who defied the impossible and became a myth among the stars. The galaxy had always feared Deathworlders, those who came from violent, unpredictable planets like Earth. To the rest of the civilized species, humans were something to be wary of, a species capable of surviving in extreme environments, adapting faster than nature itself intended, and pushing the limits of life beyond what should have been possible. Their endurance was infamous, their ability to withstand pain unsettling. Many saw them as little more than savages, too dangerous to be trusted. Others, though, saw something else, something far more terrifying. Dr. Elias Carter never wanted to be a warrior, but war had a way of finding him. His battlefield was not fought with weapons but with scalpels, antibiotics, and sheer willpower. He had spent years working on human colonies in some of the harshest environments known, patching up miners torn apart by unstable caverns, treating settlers exposed to alien diseases, and performing surgery in conditions where most doctors would have walked away. When the distress calls began to flood the Galactic Union's channels, he could have ignored them, just like everyone else. But he didn't. The Orlan plague was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The first signs were subtle: fatigue, headaches, a slight fever. But within hours, victims would collapse as their organs shut down one by one. Entire populations were wiped out in days. No cure, no survivors. The Galactic Union declared it an extinction-level event and ordered quarantine protocols. No ships were allowed in or out of infected systems. No medical teams were sent. No attempts were made to find a solution. It was decided, in cold bureaucratic efficiency, that these worlds were already lost. Elias Carter did not accept that. He took his ship and went to the first affected planet, a Kethari colony that had already been abandoned. The Kethari were a reptilian species, known for their towering frames and hardened exoskeletons, but none of that mattered to the plague. Their streets were lined with the dead. The few that still lived were too weak to move. The local doctors had long since fled or perished. The hospitals were silent, filled with the echoes of what had once been a thriving world. When Elias arrived, he found no allies, no support, only suffering. And so, he did what no one else would. He got to work. At first, there was no hope. He had no advanced Union technology, no specially designed vaccines. He had only what he carried with him: his knowledge, his hands, and his relentless determination. He started with the basics: fluids, oxygen support, isolation protocols. He modified human antibiotics, experimented with gene therapy, and used whatever medical supplies he could scavenge from the ruins of the Kethari hospitals. He worked for days without rest, surviving on caffeine and sheer willpower. Then, something incredible happened. A patient survived. Just one. At first, a Kethari child who should have been dead within hours but instead lived through the night. Then another. Then a dozen. Within weeks, Elias had managed to stabilize entire wards. Word spread like wildfire. The Deathworlder doctor was succeeding where the greatest medical minds in the galaxy had failed. They called him the Flesh Weaver. More species arrived, smuggled past Union blockades by those desperate enough to risk everything. The sick and dying came from every corner of the galaxy, some in secret, others in defiance of their governments. Elias treated them all. His hands never stopped moving, his mind never rested. He was running, on borrowed time, but he refused to stop. Then, the Galactic Union took notice. At first, they ignored the rumors. A single human could not possibly be succeeding where their most advanced laboratories had failed. But then the reports became undeniable. Whole colonies were stabilizing. The plague was not winning. A Deathworlder was standing alone against the deadliest disease in history, and he was winning. That made him a threat. The Union had already declared these planets a lost cause. They had already decided that nothing could be done. If they acknowledged Elias's success, they would have to admit their failure. So they did the only thing they could. They issued an arrest warrant. They accused him of practicing unregulated medicine, of conducting illegal genetic modifications, of using unapproved treatments that could have unknown long-term effects. It was nothing more than an excuse. The real reason was simpler: he had made them look weak. The order was clear: he was to be detained immediately. His research confiscated. His operations shut down. The very people he had saved begged the Union to reconsider. They protested, petitioned, demanded that Elias be allowed to continue. But the Union's decision had already been made. Elias had a choice: surrender and watch everything he built be destroyed, or become a fugitive. He chose neither. The night before the Union forces arrived to arrest him, something happened that no one expected. A fleet of Kethari warships appeared in orbit, their weapons powered, their crews prepared to fight. Not to attack, but to rescue him. They took him aboard in secret, hiding him among their own. The Union arrived to find nothing but empty hospitals and abandoned equipment. Elias Carter was gone, vanished without a trace. From that day forward, he was a legend. The Union erased his name from their records, banning any mention of his work. Officially, he never existed. But in the darkest corners of the galaxy, where the sick and dying had no hope, his name was whispered like a prayer. The Flesh Weaver, the Deathworlder doctor, the one who had saved them all. No one knows where Elias Carter is today. Some say he still moves between the stars, healing those the Union refuses to help. Others believe he perished long ago, sacrificing himself for his patients. But one thing is certain, his legend will never die. Because sometimes, the greatest warriors are not those who take lives, but those who refuse to let them go.